Howdy. Hi. I love this cat. Oh, Cheeto. She is being very nice. Sorry, she's touching me and it's exciting. It feels so cute. She's so soft. I like cats. I like animals. I do. Okay, so I haven't shuffled this deck yet either. I don't think I've worked with this one yet since I calibrated them. So I figured I was just going to do this one. As I just was pulling them out of the box, maybe it's because I was slightly distracted by the idea of an animal, but this one didn't come out with the rest of them. So I'm just gonna take that, I suppose. I'm gonna shuffle these up nice and good. I don't have anything in particular I'm trying to talk about. Just figured I would take advantage of having a little bit of time. I'm gonna do some flooring today before band practice, so I just wanted to take this opportunity to get this deck going. I really want to make a point to try to get back in the habit of doing it more consistently like I had been. I moved very quickly. I wasn't anticipating this move. As anticipating a move, I had no idea where I was going to go until I did. So that all happened very quickly. And then it took like a week before all of a sudden I was like, okay, yeah, this is what you're doing? Okay, no, you're here. So I've just been trying to get myself acclimated, taking my time. It's a weird thing because I always felt like there was never enough time. I really struggled with that growing up. I had this anxiety and depression from CPTSD that, you know, kind of always had me feeling like there just wasn't enough time. Like there just wasn't enough time to do all the things I want to do or to, you know, like accomplish things. I didn't know how to give myself time. Largely in part, I think, with the depression. Like I just didn't think that I was going to survive, you know, very long. So I kind of always felt rushed. I always felt rushed for things. And I also like grew up in, you know, churches that taught about the end times and how it's about to be the end of the world and it is the end of the world. And it just never seemed like there was enough time to just like enjoy myself and accomplish things. And, I kind of suffered with that for like a really long time, with struggling with like this feeling like I had like that I was trying to keep up with some clock and that like I was running out of time and that I wasn't going to be able to accomplish all the things that I wanted to, and it becoming this like self-defeating issue. But it's strange because I'm in a point now where like it's not like that. I'm no longer necessarily I'm not in a position now where I'm like waiting on time, that sort of way. Or where I feel like I'm like constantly losing it, or anything like that, where I feel like so many people now more than ever, like, especially like post-COVID, have been in this mindset of it's the end of the world and everything's going to shit and there's not enough time, and everybody being very self-defeatist in that way, which is so strange because like now is when I'm not in that, right? And you know, when I was in that way my entire life and nobody else seemed to understand, and now everybody gets it, and I'm like, I'm chill, I'm good, I'm happy, like I'm fine with wherever life is taking me. And like despite all of the craziness of things that are going on, I'm still finding myself feeling secure. My relationship with the universe has changed in such a drastic way where like I really don't I don't like wait on certain things. I don't have the same sort of codependency that I had before with society or validation or even my ego, just in that way. It's not, I can trust that the universe is going to care for me and like protect me and make sure that everything is, you know, the way that it should be, and that as long as I'm paying attention, that those things will be. It's I have so many thoughts going through my head at all times. My ADHD has been like absolutely wild lately. Which also makes it hard to come down. So when it used to be that I didn't feel like I had enough time, I guess that's still maybe part of the feeling. It is just breaking it down enough to be like, there's time for all of these things. So just prioritize like what is the most accessible, what is the best, what is, you know, the most fundamental, what is the most sustainable, and let those things, just trust those things. I mean, like, I'm in a band right now, and like normally I wouldn't prioritize something like that over like other people, over like my role in society in these different types of ways. There's always been this way where like, as much as I love doing entertainment and the arts of all different sorts, specifically being in a band was like, or not even being in a band, like even when I was doing comedy and stuff, there's always this idea where like, but that's not significant. And like, if, you know, it's just entertainment, and like if people need me for something that seems greater, like that should take the priority, when like I'm starting to see it as a priority in my life in a way where like it's not that I need to do this specific thing with this specific band that way, but like this is an opportunity for me to embrace the fact that like if what I want to do with my life revolves around the arts and entertainment, like there's nothing wrong with that, and I should just embrace that and like make the most of that and let this be like stand for that and what it is, and like ultimately like that's the thing that I'm, you know, I don't need to feel like I have to put that on the back burner just because it's not significant enough, right? Because I'm also doing the very exact different type of work that I would like to be doing right now to prepare myself for the type of work I would like to do socially, in that type of way, you know, like I say socially, like not entertainment wise, not arts and media based, but like community based wise, socially. Like I have aspirations to, you know, to teach and to build, and to develop, you know, sustainable systems for the future, for future generations. So, you know, that's always taken precedence over everything else, and I've finally fallen into this place where like that is taking precedence naturally. It just is coming that way, but at the same time it's allowing me this opportunity to like pursue these other things in a way that doesn't make me feel guilty, and that's great. I'm still struggling with my own guilt, but you know, my own entertainment isn't valuable. Like you should be doing something else, like, you know, whatever that shit is. I don't actually believe that. I think that entertainment is essential in, this one came out like this. It's essential in, like, what would be the point of living if it weren't for being able to enjoy things? It's not like, oh, I need to be entertained, but like, I do think that entertainment is essential. I think that art and expression is all essential. I think that those things are very, very important. Okay, so this is hopefully going to be pretty simple because I don't know how much time I actually have.
Get it. Get it, Cheeto. Get it. Where's the toy? Get the toy.
This kitty. There is a kitty. She is very cute. Hold on, I'll show you. It's very important that everybody sees this kitty.
Cheeto. 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 That's Cheeto.
She's cute. She's nice. She's nice. She's my friend's cat. Yeah, and she's so nice. Little tiny, tiny, soft little babe. The tail, and she touches me with her tail. Okay, so as I was literally just saying, I don't know how much time I have while I'm taking my time. Okay. Very cool. Right off the bat, we have the Hermit card, which I haven't seen in this deck before. I know it doesn't focus very well. I guess right there is pretty good. So it's got the, what I'm noticing first is the egg and the snake. And the hermit's in between them. And it's the year of the snake. There's this egg. There's this idea. It's the year of the snake in the Chinese zodiac. The egg is a symbol of birth, of rebirth, of creation, continuation, of teeming new life, of newness, of change, of transition, of something new, something. It's almost like a light bulb over somebody's head. You know, the egg. It's like this, this idea of something coming to life, like knowing that there's about to be some sort of success. There's an air of success, but it's like waiting on it to take its full form. But like it being the year of the snake, for me personally as a Scorpio is, and not as a Scorpio, as somebody born in 1989 is significant. And I don't know, I think it's, what is it, every 7 years or something? I'm bad with the Chinese zodiac. But it is interesting that it just so happens to be, because 25 has always been like this weird number in my childhood. That was like a significant power number in my childhood. So for it to be my year that I was born, the celebration of the year that I was born, this is my celebratory year, and for it to happen to be a significant year within my, you know, my own little personal reality, is significant for me. And it's felt like, it's interesting because like this egg has been coming up for years, really, even for like 5 years now. Really, since I started getting into tarot, it's always been that thing, and I'm sure it's always a thing. But there's this very specific thing that has been waiting, that's been waiting. And it's so interesting because like what I'm seeing in this card, like with the snake, like I see the snake immediately as, oh, it's the year of the snake, and I'm seeing it as this opportunity, and it's something good. But like the snake and the egg is a weird. There's one specific tarot deck, I don't know which one it is, that has the snake with the egg. It's an egg, and I think it's called Golden Egg in the thing. I think it's an oracle card, maybe. I mean, an oracle deck. But the snake is wrapped around the egg, and it's like rainbow colors and black and white. It's real pretty. But the snake is wrapped around the egg. And so those two together does tend to be like a fairly common symbol. They're not together in this card that same way. They just happen to be the first things that I noticed. And so I'm seeing like this year being one of opportunity, especially for specific people. Interestingly, it's kind of funny to me because like this little character on the top here, you can't really see in the screen. It's not coming up, but it's like this person, like their face is stretched out into this triangle. It's like a whole face stretched out in that triangle, right? It looks like these, like, what would you, like, icons or thumbnails for images that are images of faces, or what are they called? It's like within the program for the video game Morrowind, within the program for any video game, right? There's like an index of the imagery and like statistics and equations that the computer is going to use to process this program so that it can actually, you know, there's a coding for each different game, right? And within the coding is the actual images used, what is it called? The skins, essentially, that are going to be used. And like in Morrowind specifically, they have these images of like the faces that are used on the characters, but the characters themselves actually have a different equation, a different code. And then they just stretch these skins over the different bodies. So what that ends up looking like within the coding is that there's like a whole series of images at one point where it's just like people's faces stretched out into these boxes, and they look really, really silly because their face takes up the entire box. But it's like you can see the race of the person. Just you can tell by their phenomes, but like in these images, it's just funny to see their faces so like widely stretched out. And that's what this looks like. And it almost is like this built character, you're building, it's built. It's giving me like voodoo vibes, almost like it's like a voodoo doll, only it's one that you've done for yourself. So it's almost like a homunculus, but it's not. But it's this avatar, and it's made out of what appears to be an oil lamp. And then there's an oil lamp, a crystal, and these different types of strings. You have black strings and white strings, and you have them interlaced like the double helix. And then you light both sides, and it lights up the crystal. The light is reflecting off the crystal to illuminate this mirror in which this person's face is stretched out. But it's funny because like this like reminds me of that type of avatar character too from Morrowind. But if you can see that this hermit, okay, so this hermit also has wheat growing behind him and below him. But if you see that they're slightly different, it's almost like, this almost looks more like corn, but I'm getting the idea of the separation between wheat and chaff. Chaff grows up with wheat and appears to be wheat and is very much like it. But when you're going to harvest wheat, the actual wheat is what stays stuck to the rod of the staff of the wheat, and you just shake the like the bundles. Once you cut them, you shake the bundles, and in the shaking, all of the chaff falls off, and the chaff is like essentially just like the dried excess other stuff that isn't the actual meat of the wheat. And so there's this idea of like there being this natural process that's happening this year it's the cracking of the egg. So it's like there's been this opportunity that hasn't been properly recognized, and it's going to be fully realized within this alchemical process of the shaking of the wheat from the chaff. What is real, what is not, what is truly of us and what isn't, not necessarily what is right and wrong. Those things will come after the fact because they'll denote themselves, but it's almost like this just what is really you and what really isn't, and all of the concepts that play into these things and like the depths of these things are going to continue to be exposed and progressed upon to the point of some sort of maturity. And maybe that's almost like the process of the egg. We're right at that point where like by the end of the year we start to see this egg crack. But it's been being denoted for years, and it very well could be much sooner than that. But that's kind of what we're talking about, is this like coming into one's self, into an idea of oneself. There's so much more I could take from this card, but I'm trying to do this reading as quickly as possible. Okay. Also, the card is called the Magus of the Voice of Light. The Voice of Light. The Magus of the Voice of Light. The cat's running around like crazy. It's almost like, well, it's giving me Skyrim vibes now, because that's like off of Morrowind, essentially. So it's like taking these Skyrim vibes of like the Greybeards. The Greybeards aren't dragonborn, but they have dedicated their entire lives, which is what, a couple hundred years, if not more, like to, and like ancestrally, like they keep passing it down, but like they've dedicated their entire lives to learning the voice of the dragons and to be able, you know, to be able to speak with the Dova, and like that's their language, right? And that's like because they're like a sacred being, the Dova, the dragons. And it's interesting because I'm getting like in that, like it's almost like it's so, I'm seeing like it's as if like a graybeard has spent their entire lives researching this one thing. Researching this one thing so that they could, like, because the idea was that the dragon, that the gift that's given to the dragonborn is the capacity to be able to speak with the dragons within their tongue. And so studying the tongue of the dragons and like actually learning this language, that like that must be the power, like that's the one that's just naturally given to the dragonborn. But if as a graybeard I learn this, if I dedicate my life to learning this, I can still become this thing, and eventually I'll become that sort of idea. But it's almost like realizing like that wouldn't be possible without taking on this avatar of the dragonborn. So it's almost like this graybeard sitting and playing Skyrim so that he can be the dragonborn, so that he can learn these ways and learn how to apply them, and learn like why this is, what's the difference, like why have us, you know, 200 years playing this way never worked. There's some other way for it to be done. Interesting. Okay, and that comes up with the Six of Wands. That comes up in the receiving side. So it comes up in the Six of Wands in the giving, or in the like decisive, or the more aggressive, more assertive, more confident, more controlled, more controlling side is the Six of Wands, which it's an interesting card because it looks like somebody going to break bread. But these hands look almost like a slave's hands because they look very, very hardened. The fingers are all knotty. They look like they're very hard worked, but they also have these gold bracers around their wrists that just make it look like some type of servant, like there's some type of servitude. Perhaps just a humility, or perhaps the strength of like vulnerability, or of humility, or of being placed in a certain position where you have to recognize that you're not in control, but being able to control yourself within that position, sort of deal. But the bread that they're breaking isn't bread. It's actually the evil eye, right? It's the eye. It's the eye of protection. This is called Lord of Victory, this card. And as when I've read this card before, I've read it as like curse breaking, being able to break a curse. And so it's almost like, yeah, like there's this certain idea, there's this certain concept, there's a certain behavior that involves putting oneself below another, being put below another, being less, like considering oneself to be less significant than another, or like competing with another. There's this sort of idea that like it's got its hands on, you know, it's got a grip, and it's like trying to interfere with, and it's trying to break this idea of protection over oneself. So it's really fucking with somebody's like self-confidence. But we're talking about being able to break that curse. It's interesting though, because obviously with this Hermit card coming out this way, like there's this process that needs to be done for this person to be able to see these things come to proper fruition. So in between these cards, we have the foolish man in the upright, the spirit of either, of the ether. I said it like either, which is interesting. Because they do kind of seem to have this like contrast. But I think ultimately it's kind of talking about, and with the foolish man, like it's talking about kind of, you know, in the Matrix when Neo has to, like, for the first time go running and jumping off the building, and like he has to believe in himself in order to fly, and he doesn't really believe in himself because he doesn't know how it works yet, so he doesn't like fully understand, and so the first time he tries, he fails, but in the failing realizes that like it was okay for him to trust himself. He just didn't. So now he knows that he can and that he should. And it is like being able to like, there's this feeling of like having a self-protection, but also a self-love, and being able to offer that love, and while being able to keep that love, and kind of not needing this external validation because like this, the external validation is what's causing this person to believe that like, if I don't do this thing a certain way, if I don't act a certain way or come across a certain way, if I'm not in control of a certain thing, especially like when it comes to like how people view my confidence, like then it's all going to go to shit. So like I am like extremely guarded to try to ensure that I can like have this egg, that I can keep this thing protected, and then I can get to this point. But what it's talking, like it's saying like that is holding the person back. Like it's holding the person back to believe that they need protection. To believe that they need protection. That's actually a process I've gone through within the last couple of years. And it did take a very long time. And my PTSD had me like terrified in general. Like I would get very paranoid, and I'd get very terrified of just people and trusting people in certain situations, and it would drive me all sorts of different ways because I always felt like I required some type of protection that I just didn't have access to, when ultimately I've always had it within myself and been able to get where I've needed to get, you know, while trusting myself, and even in the craziest ways. And so it's kind of like a reflection on that, like we're talking about somebody should be able to trust themselves, and they can, and they will, but like they're going through that process right now of like realizing that they don't need to be on the constant defense in order to protect this thing, that their protection is kind of innate, and like it's in receiving it fully so that they aren't in fear any longer, that they can actually start breaking these curses. Like you really can't be given to the fear of what's going to happen in the afterlife if you really are like truly set and confident in what you're doing with your life, you know? So like it's kind of doing this one thing so that it benefits this other thing, that sort of way. The way it's benefiting this idea of protection, like we have the blasted tower in the upright. You okay, kitty?
Get it. Get that ball.
Yeah. She meows. Meow. The Lord of the hosts of the mighty. So what I'm seeing with this is like that same thing. It's a tower moment for sure of, you know, I'm going to feel fully exposed, and I'm not going to know how to explain that, how to express that, how to protect myself against it if somebody says something else against it. And the fear that comes with that of like, you know, like when I saw my family again for the first time in years, where it's like, okay, I've done a lot of healing, I've done a lot of growing, but like until I actually interact with them this certain way, I won't know how healed I truly am. And like, what if I become exposed for like not actually being properly healed, and they pull out a version of me that I don't like to see, that like sends me spiraling into a depression for an extended period of time, and it just fucks my whole life up. Like, it's not worth being given to that fear. But I used to be, and I used to let that anxiety kind of run things for me. And so it's talking about like being able to be in that same position where like you just acknowledge that it's something that you're doing and that you're giving power to, and you slowly start to make the decision to just not do that. It's the same way how it goes with quitting anything. If you're trying to quit cigarettes, like it's very difficult, but it essentially just takes like not smoking cigarettes. So like whatever that takes over time, if it takes just like actively going through this process of just not, you know, I'm just not gonna smoke it right now. I'm just not gonna smoke it today. I'm just not gonna smoke this weekend. I'm just not gonna buy another pack of cigarettes. Like, and it just, you know, you progress to the point of being able to be in control of these things. So it's a process, and we're talking about this process, but the process itself is like releasing this idea that you need some type of divine protection as if you don't already have it. Receive it. You've been asking for it. You've been calling for it. You've been inscribing it on things. Like, receive it. Trust it. Like, you can literally do anything when you're under divine protection, but you can't be under it. It's literally right there for you, but you can't be under it until you step under it and actively receive it and receive what it's doing. You know, so like that, it, you know, you have to be willing to be able to be like, you know what, I'm good, I'm secure, I'm strong, I'm capable, I'm confident, and to move forward in that way. And what we're moving forward into in the same way, as we move forward in a way that like presents us a certain way in the physical, where people start to notice it and start to see it and start to treat us differently. What we're also moving towards inwardly is Seven of Cups in the reverse, the Lord of illusionary success. Interesting. We're moving away from this idea of illusion. That's such an interesting. So in this card, interestingly, there's cups, but there's no water. When normally in these cards there's water, and there's these lotuses, but and these lily pads, but every single one of them is kind of bent over. And it's this idea that like it could be like fake plastic trees, right? Like this you're watering rubber plants, like they're not even real, you know. And that's kind of what we've been doing. There's been this illusion of strength and security and wisdom and maturity that we've been clinging to for a long time that is just not ultimately serving us. And this really is the time and year to kind of put ourselves in this third person perspective, to see how we're playing the game, to see what our character really looks like from a third person perspective. Like, it's so funny because like there'll be times when you're playing Skyrim where like you'll get so involved in like all these different things that you're doing and stuff that like you won't have looked at your character for a while. You won't have seen like a different screen where you see them from the third perspective. And when you do go to see them from the third perspective, they're running around with like without a shirt or like without pants, or like they have like this weird helmet on, or like this weird mix of things. They're suddenly carrying things that you forgot that you'd encumbered. And like, you know, if you don't take that time to kind of look at yourself in the mirror and to look at yourself from that third person perspective at different times, like it's very easy to forget really who you are and what it is that you stand for. You know, you'd be so caught up, you're playing a character that's supposed to be very evil, but you get so caught up playing the characters that you normally play that suddenly like your character's just all like helping people out, wearing like a button-down shirt and a nice pair of glasses, and it's like, well, wait a second, this character is actually evil. You know, and like that's just a, you know, a play off of video games, but like it's the same sort of idea where, you know, we want to get to this point of being able to truly be able to express ourselves honestly and as we really are. And really even without, like, it's even beyond kind of the examples that I had, because it's almost like it's not about having to put on a thing and then be like, this is how you know that I'm a very evil character. Like, it's being able to be so genuine with oneself that you don't need to put on in order to be a certain type of way. And it's kind of the embracing of that. Like, I keep bringing up the very evil thing. So I'm getting this energy of like somebody that like likely like this inward reflection has always perceived a certain aspect of somebody's self as evil. And the reflection is to break that, because you don't, that's the idea that it's evil, has become its own sense of protection. That's what it was established for, was to protect oneself from that evil as it's being perceived. But the perception itself is extremely limiting, and until that is released, it's kind of maintaining this cursed sense of something being evil. Where as soon as that's removed, the reality becomes this thing isn't truly evil. It's actually quite necessary for breaking down a person's experience with themselves in such a way that they're actually able to process it accurately, and thus offer a more genuine person to the world. You know, it's unfortunate, but like, no matter how well-intended we are to, you know, have integrity and to be genuine and to be honest with ourselves and thus with others, it's very easy to become self-deluded without a consistent process to fall back into. That's the point of self-actualization, you know, is that it really, in the same way that like they'll tell you at self-help, like with self-help things, that like it's very important that you know, pay a certain amount for the classes that you're taking, because without paying, your brain like is just like, oh, this was free information, kind of stores it differently. But the second that you work to pay for the time that you're spending, you start to take it more serious, naturally, you know. And so there's this way of like retraining our brains to respond to things, because that's really the way that things work. And like, we've kind of just gotten way too far out. So it's kind of being willing to take that step, you know, in order to kind of go through this process. And what's crazy that I'm getting out of all of this is that like in the Matrix, if you watch the 3 movies, like the process that Neo goes through is wild, because he initially goes through this process of perceiving himself to be the hero, to be the savior against this one definitive evil. And then that kind of starts to take on this larger form as he processes that and begins to encompass that and really manifest that. It becomes evident that it's not just that one evil, that one evil actually takes all of these different forms, and that he must also kind of branch himself out and base himself into a community, a larger community, in order to fight this. And then like that slowly comes to this realization that like, what are they really even fighting for? And then by the 3rd one, like it breaks down that like what they thought they were fighting for was actually just them being used in this greater play against what it is that they really want. And that if they had fully become aware, they would have realized that the thing that they had created to sustain themselves was just being improperly used. It wasn't evil in of itself. The Matrix isn't bad. It's just not being used right. Zion itself is destroyed. And we relied on the Matrix in order to create this sense of purpose in order to move forward. But we immediately lost it when we started basing ourselves on comfort and convenience. And, you know, everybody wanted to program the girl with the red dress and the fresh steak and all of this type of thing, where like it no longer became about what it was really about. And so people forgot over time, right? And it's almost like we've done that to ourselves. There was a way that we were when we were children that made us feel safe and secure in ourselves without even having to question it. And it didn't matter what anybody did. We were like, no, this is who we are. But to get to that person, it doesn't, you know, maybe you have to go really, really, really far back. Maybe, you know, that was taken from you at such a young age that it's hard to remember, but like it's there. And we're talking about going through this process to be willing to kind of take that leap, to jump off of that building and trust that like something good is going to come from this, but even if I don't know what. And like, you know, the first time Neo jumps off the building, he falls into the ground and the ground like bounces him back up. And so he realizes that like, he thinks he's going to die until the second that the ground doesn't respond the same type of way. And it's almost having that willingness to, you know, I will do this even if it kills me. Like, I'm gonna, you know, because this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I can trust that, like, if there's something actually meant for me after this with these things, that'll just come to be by being on this path. So I don't have to be afraid of death. If what it leads to is death, that's what it was supposed to lead to anyways. And it's better that I walk into that with confidence than fear. You know, having this idea of like being able to look at things in that third perspective in order to really be able to properly adjust and move forward with them. I'm not sure exactly. I mean, this is kind of vague for sure. I'm not sure exactly where this is coming from. Or who it's for. It seems like that's kind of been the way for these last few readings, which is cool. Hopefully, whoever this is for, whoever it resonates with, whoever it could potentially help with whatever random thing, gets to see this, gets to hear it. And, you know, even if it's not something that fully resonated with you, I hope that it, you know, any time that you spent here was still somehow beneficial. That, you know, I don't know. That was a weird one. I feel like I'm going to be processing that one for a minute because I didn't take certain things from it personally. But then there were some things that I did. So, I don't know. Weird read, but slowly trying to get back onto some sort of consistency. So, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for listening. I will see you in the next one.